Hi, this is Dr. Daniels, and welcome to Healing with Dr. Daniels. This is Sunday, January 19th, 2020, and today's topic is there's a war going on. Yes, there is. So today I'm going to reveal the escalation of the secret war in the medical industrial complex. And while you may not be keen on defending yourself, this information can help you at least get out the way and save your life. So, first, as always, we're going to take our turpentine. Let's see. We've got our spoon. Our white sugar is white cane sugar. And our turpentine. I keep mine in this little beaker on my desk. It's my little pipette. Squeeze it. Yay. And I like to take half a teaspoon, so that goes right up to the neck of the beaker. That's a little more than the neck, so we're going to put it down a little bit. The neck of the pipette. Okay. We now have a half teaspoon of turpentine, which is what I take. And you can adjust your dose to whatever you think is right for you. And here we have white sugar, and we're just going to drop this on the whole half teaspoon. Yep. There we go. And a little bit of water. Yay! Mm-hmm. Yum. Now, every now and then, a little bit of turpentine on the lips. I like to wipe that off. I do not lick my lips after turpentine. It doesn't taste that bad, but it doesn't taste that good either. All right, next, we're going to take our shilajit. I take my shilajit. It's very important because it's a broad spectrum of trace minerals. And while your body does manufacture some really awesome enzymes that do a lot to keep you healthy and awesome, they need these trace minerals as coenzymes. They can function without the trace minerals, but with the trace minerals, things go a lot better. All right, so this is a little metal stick that I have that I use. You can use the tines of a fork if you want to. And just take a little scoop. The dose is 200 milligrams. And I'm just eyeballing it. Yeah, there we go. Put this over here so you can see it. Twirl it around. Yep. That might be a little less than 200 milligrams, but more or less. And here's the rest of my water. Put it in there. Notice it does not dissolve. Right, so we're going to let it sit for a while, and then we're going to do it later. Drink it later, rather. All right, so meanwhile, back at the ranch, all right, so this is just so I have as many questions as possible to answer at the end. As you know, we're not always able to answer all the questions, so appointments are available at vitalitycapsules.com/appointments. Or we also have a monthly membership program, which is vitalitycapsules.com/heal-at-home, which allows you to pursue your healing in a group format, but also it allows you to have a knowledge base, a fund of knowledge that allows you to handle health concerns on your own without dialing 911 or any need of a hospital or ambulance. I was really shocked when I heard that people actually picked their living location based on how close it was to a hospital. I'm like, how sad is that? And this is when I was in medical school training, and I realized that what we were learning was totally useless. And so to plan your life to live close to a hospital, to me, it made no sense at all. It's like no sense at all. So with this Heal at Home membership subscription program does for you is it gives you support and it gives you knowledge so you can literally heal at home and live anywhere. Personally, I live in the jungle with no hospital or ambulance availability. And that means I have nice, great scenery and beautiful birds. In fact, you might even hear them chirping during the show. All Alrighty. So we got a war going on. So actually, there are two wars. Two wars going on. And you're not hearing about them on the 6 o'clock news. But hey, it is what it is. And these two wars are going on in the medical industrial complex. The first war is obvious and made clear by the drop in life expectancy in the United States. So this drop in life expectancy in the United States is totally, completely due to the increased availability of healthcare. Right. So the drop is caused by the heroin epidemic, 80% of which is caused by doctors following the standard of care in the medical industrial complex and prescribing opioids as they've been trained to do. And this is the number, this 80%, that the government and the medical industrial complex, they agree on. And so literally, access to medical care has single-handedly dropped the life expectancy in the United States. That's the first war. Now you could get an inkling of this war when the medical industrial complex stands up and says, yes, we are the third leading cause of death in the United States. Like, whoa, are you guys supposed to be saving lives? So that's the first war. So the first war is that the medical industrial complex is openly exterminating Americans. I'm not criticizing this. I mean, just saying. Just information. Do what you want with it. But the second war is extremely interesting. It's fascinating. You can watch it like a action flick or something. So second war is within the medical industrial complex itself. And this ain't no David and Goliath. This is Goliath 1 and Goliath 2. So this is a clash of the titans. It's a big one. The gloves have come off, and there are some serious body blows that are landing. So what war is this? Well, as you might recall, during the Obama reign, Obamacare was passed. The whole point had nothing to do with healthcare, but it had to do with compelling Americans to give money to insurance companies. Well, this is awesome. This meant the insurance companies got that healthcare dollar first. And they aim to keep all of it. All of it. So they have gone to war with those who would take any speck of that dollar. Namely, and I don't like saying alternative healers. No. That's not it. It is the doctors, the hospitals, and the drug companies. So the insurance companies have declared war. I mean WAR, all caps, double bold. This war is necessarily secret. It's got to be secret. It goes like this. Doctors follow the standard of care. This leads to bills showing up at the insurance company to be paid. Now, the insurance companies, as you know, if you have health insurance, have many ways of avoiding and evading paying these bills. But the insurance companies want these bills to stop showing up so they can keep even more money. So remember, back in medical school, 50% of stuff in medical school was false. That means at least 50% of the care your doctor is prescribing is of no earthly benefit to you. It can't be, because it's based on false information, a false assumption, a false belief, whatever the doctor has been trained. Okay. So the insurance companies, who have all the data anyway, have begun exposing this 50% false stuff at a much faster rate. Now, the false nature of this information in the past has been exposed, but at a very slow rate. Like, it takes this 50% about 4 to 6 years to get exposed. The insurance company's like, no, we're going to go faster than that. On the other hand, if this exposure was publicly done, then it would cause people to lose total faith in the medical industrial complex, and they would refuse to even pay health insurance premiums. So, in order to win this war, It has got to be secret. Yeah. So if the regular man on the street was aware of the whole volume, as my mother would say, preponderance of evidence that what their doctor is doing just doesn't need to be done and is of absolutely no benefit, then they would lose faith not only in the doctor, but in the healthcare system, and they would stop paying health insurance premiums. The health insurance companies can't have that. So what they need to do is go behind the scenes, behind the curtain where it can't be seen, and change the standard of care to delete all of these practices that is causing them to write checks. Now, they didn't stop there. They don't stop there. So I practiced medicine back in the 90s, so I can tell you this, just because I was there. So back in the 90s, the insurance companies were considered to be the good guys because they paid insurance claims or paid medical bills, and they made healthcare affordable, accessible, available. That was the party line. And part of supporting this was the Medicare system had a standard of 7%. That meant that 7% of each healthcare dollar could be kept by the insurance companies, and some insurance companies, the bad ones, were keeping 15 cents of every dollar. Well, fast forward to 2020. Oh my God. Many states have passed laws, you hear me? Laws, saying the insurance companies can keep up to 35 cents of every healthcare dollar. So if every dollar they collect, they're only obligated to pay 65 cents out in healthcare claims. Yeah. At some point, it ceases to become insurance and it's extortion. But obviously, this 35 cents on the dollar that insurance companies are allowed to keep is expanding, and many states are considering expanding that number even larger. They have their reasons, there's a whole discussion on the internet about it, but the point is, the insurance companies are getting the states to pass laws expanding the amount of money to each dollar that they're allowed to keep by law. Then on the other hand, they're doing research to rewrite the standard of care so that health care doesn't even get received and the bills don't even show up. So this flurry of research discrediting many fundamental practices of medicine, as I said, has to remain secret. And this is a fine line the insurance companies are walking between exposing the practices so fewer bills are generated, but not lessening the faith and desire of people to buy insurance. And so let's take a look at this all-out war and how it's coming along. Disclosure, I do not own an insurance company. I'm not licensed to practice medicine, so I have no dog in this fight. However, I just think you ought to know. So a lot of these things, these wars and this tension is revealed in the medical industrial complex, and it's covered up or concealed in a cloak. That doesn't say war report. No, instead it says 15 studies that challenged medical dogma in 2019. Right, so these are 15 studies that say what the medical industrial complex thought was true just ain't so. Just ain't so. Number one, we're going to go through all 15 of these studies, and I'm going to explain to you in English what they mean. Number one, new neurons proliferate in the hippocampus as we age, even into the 9th decade of life, researchers demonstrated in this paper in Nature magazine. What does that mean? Well, new neurons means new brain cells, and they can grow even into the 9th decade of life. That means after age 80. That means your body can build and maintain a brain in tip-top shape, tip-top condition, at least until the mid-80s. So what's with Alzheimer's? How's that work? Right. So Alzheimer's has actually nothing to do with aging. Nothing at all. And so once you understand that Alzheimer's has nothing to do with aging, then the next thing that comes around is when you talk to your doctor, what's going on here? Why can't you fix this? Since it has nothing to do with aging, this is like a cold or like a leg injury, something the body should be able to heal. Why can't the body heal it? As with most functions where the body fails to heal, it's generally a malnutrition issue. And so the nutrition I found fixes this very nicely is, wait for it, drum roll, cholesterol. Yeah. And so once you understand that that Alzheimer's is not inevitable, and that your body actually does have the ability to make new brain cells throughout the lifespan of the individual, then you have to ask yourself, why is it not happening? And even more so, why are people getting Alzheimer type symptoms at early ages? And the answer to that is people have bought into the low cholesterol lie. Oh, well. Personally, I keep my cholesterol as high as I can. All right, next. What's the next piece of research? Novel protein coding genes evolve on a de novo basis far more commonly than previously thought. That sounds pretty abstruse, right? Maybe you need a PhD to understand that one. Well, let's break it down to English. Novel, that means new. Protein coded genes, that means DNA. So new DNA evolves, that means changes. Changes on a de novo basis, that means all at once without reproduction, far more commonly than previously thought. This means, let's take it to Darwinian theory. The Darwinian theory is you have one genetic individual, static, set of genes. You get them at birth. You have them your whole life. That's it. Done. Yeah. Okay. Another individual, same species. Another set of genes. They mix, and their genes mix, and then separate, forming genetically different offspring formed by that mixture. Okay. Also, in the process of these genes mixing, genes can change and mutate, and different characteristics can evolve, and you can actually get even a different species. That's what the medical industrial complex now believes. This research says, no, y'all guys, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. Wrong. That's not it. Not what happens. So this research shows you have one individual, has genes, they got them at birth. That individual body has the ability to recode and rewrite genetic information during the lifetime of that particular organism. The organism does not need to die and pass its genes on to the next generation for evolution to happen or for change to happen. In other words, sitting here right now, my body can rewrite genetic code. The same way you have a corporation, it says, we need an app for that. And they call on the programmer and say, you need to write some more code. Your body does the same thing. It can say, we need some genes for that. Gene writers, write some more code. And so what this does then is this totally destroys the premise or validity of the genetic basis for anything, because you can change your genes. You can change up. How cool is that? How cool is that? So when your doctor tells you, well, I'm sorry, it's just genetic, you're going to get that little heart attack or cancer or whatever, it's genetic, you can tell your doctor to take his genes and keep them, and you and your genes are working on solutions. So basically all of the genetic testing and everything just out the window. And genetic testing ain't cheap. So what does this mean? How does this happen? And basically the way it happens is the person is exposed to certain environmental difficulties or challenges, and the body says, whoa, if we're going to survive this, we need to write some new genetic code. And so your genes can actually change and alter during your lifetime. And this is published by Nature, Ecology, and Evolution. I even went and looked up that article. I said, man, that's great. That's amazing. And it's called Rapid Evolution of Protein Diversity by De Novo Origination in Oriza. There we go. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Think of all the genetic testing people are doing. Here's a nice one. Children's long bones grow with the help of a stem cell niche radical clonality switch that develops in the epiphyseal growth plate, according to research published in Nature. Need a PhD for that one too, huh? I mean, did you understand what I just said? I barely understood it, but let me give you the English translation. And this is another reason why when people tell me, well, Dr. Daniels, I've been doing online research. I know that the language they put this research in is so abstruse and obscure that it literally deliberately confounds and almost makes comprehension impossible. But we're going to translate this one to English for you. So children, these are people who are pre-puberty. They have long bones. Long bones are basically the bones in the legs. These are long bones. And this bone here, the humerus, and the radius and ulnar. So these are your long bones. Okay. So they grow with the help of a switch that can turn on and turn off and clone cells to make the growth plate grow. And of course, we can deduce that this switch is turned off at puberty, which is when most people's bones stop growing. I should say girls stop growing at puberty. Men, their long bones continue to grow as late as 25. Why? We don't know. And so what this means then, that the epiphyseal growth plate can grow, and that growth can be modified and adjusted. Whereas before, it was believed that that was not the case. That if you had a child, that child had an injury to the growth plate, oh well, that's it. We got another midget. So, no, not the case. The growth plate can be repaired. In fact, it can repair itself. What does that mean? What could that mean? Well, it could mean that all of these growth plate surgeries kids are getting when they break bones are just unnecessary. A simple cast and boom, the bone will just grow nicely. That's one possible implication. And so again, a lot of expensive intervention, not needed. Here's another one you can put to use right now in your life. And it says, are 10,000 steps really the activity goal we should be aiming for? Researchers ran a study of nearly 17,000 women and found the cutoff for mortality benefit was only 4,400. This was reported in the Journal of the American Medical Association, Internal Medicine. Now, this is a really interesting piece of information. What it means is it's easier to stay in shape than we thought. And no, you don't need to walk 10,000 steps a day. You can just walk 4,400. And what they correlated to is, I call the bottom line, mortality. And so what you really want to do, and I talked about this in my customer appreciation seminar, and I also talk about this in my monthly program, where we have 2 sessions, live sessions a month with me, which is, what you want to do is you want to get to the health that you need to have the kind of life that you want. And you want to do the minimal input to get there. And that's really all you need. In this case, 4,400 steps gets you living longer. Comparing the DNA of primary colorectal cancer tumors and metastases in the liver or brain revealed that for 80% of the patients in the study, metastasis, spread of the tumor, took root early. What does that mean? Well, can you talk about colorectal cancer and maybe, or maybe not, it's generalizable to other cancers. The idea of metastasis or spread of a cancer is an oxymoron. Once a cancer is detected, it has already metastasized. Why? because the cancer starts in the liver. All the cancer cells are always circulating, and the tumor the doctor finds is just the home that those cells found. They're like, oh, come on, join the party, join the party. And the tumor gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But what happened was the liver failed to filter out the cancer cells that were circulating. So if metastasis of cancer means the cancer is existing in other parts of the body, no matter where you find a cancer, I tell you right now, there's cancer cells in the liver and there's cancer cells in the blood. That's it, because the way the body works has to be. And so this idea of a doctor doing $10,000 or $50,000 worth of tests to see if it's spread, has it come back yet? It's a misuse of your time and the health insurance company's money. What else do we have here on our list? Next on the list. Uh-oh. This one is bad. So typhoid toxin may not, that's the poison that Salmonella typhi produces. Typhoid toxin may not be required for people infected with Salmonella typhi to develop typhoid fever. Research found in this study in Nature Medicine. So in other words, you have a disease, Salmonella typhi. It produces typhoid fever, we're told, by a toxin. And now we're saying, no, the Salmonella toxin, typhoid toxin or poison, is not necessary for people to develop typhoid fever and the symptoms of the disease. Well, is the Salmonella necessary? Is it related to Salmonella at all? Yes. This raises another question. It was proven that Salmonella typhi does indeed release an extracellular toxin. Here we go. The question is, the typhoid vaccine. Despite the availability of water and sanitation, people still have it. Okay. So the problem here is, how is the disease caused if it's not caused by the typhoid toxin produced by the Salmonella, number one. And number two, is the disease even caused by Salmonella? So this calls into question the validity of even the typhoid vaccine to prevent the typhoid disease. Yep. I'm telling you, it gets curiouser and curiouser. Oh, here's one. Here's one that will put a lot of money in the pockets of the insurance companies. Assessing myocardial viability is not a helpful marker to predict the long-term outcome of coronary artery bypass grafting surgery, according to a randomized trial published in the New England Journal of Medicine. So in other words, measuring how much heart muscle is present and how well it's contracting, in other words, cardiac output and cardiac contractility, is not a good, helpful predictor. In other words, it's a waste of time to do those tests. Those tests are pretty expensive tests, let me tell you. So assessing the heart's living heart tissue and its condition It's not a helpful marker to predict the long-term outcome of coronary artery bypass graft surgery, which, of course, I could tell you that because the surgery is unnecessary anyway. But let the insurance companies do that research next year. Okay, we got this research. Okay, so a lot of this next one is really interesting. So a lot of medical dogma that's presented is presented in terms of race. Blacks this, whites that, urban people this, educated people that, ignorant people that. It's very divisively presented in a way that's not actually clinically useful. So, rising body mass index among people living in rural areas, that means obesity, not the cities, is the main driver of the global obesity epidemic. Now, this is kind of counterintuitive, right? You have people in rural areas getting fat. Where the heck is the food coming from? Right? Because you think of in cities, you think, well, in cities, people are, grocery store on every corner, right? Food's everywhere. Of course, people in the city are going to get fat. But again, that's the whole reasoning process, which has nothing to do with reality. And so the reality is people in the rural areas, not cities, are the ones that are getting fat. In other words, it ain't the ghetto dwellers. All right. The brain microbiome. It might actually exist. In other words, there might actually be organisms, microorganisms living in the brain that are helping the brain function better. And herpes virus, a member of the neurological microbiome for sure, because it does live in the neurological roots of the spinal column, that is agreed upon by pretty much everybody, might play a role in Alzheimer's disease. And then again, it might not. Data published in Neurons suggests this year the research responded to other scientists who pointed out issues they saw in the findings. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with that finding. First of all, whenever you have a finding of something that might be this, it might be that, then I personally take all those, put them in a pile, flush them. Because I kind of try and stick to like what is. Number 10. Cardiac stem cell therapy appears to work by stimulating the immunologic wound healing process rather than generating new cells. All right? Get this? So stem cells don't work by generating new cells. Ay, ay, ay. Do they work at all? By stimulating the wound healing process rather than generating new cells. And so this calls the whole stem cell thing into question. And so, having been in the medical research, knowledge, whatever field of data coming and going, and this and that, what they're saying here is all the stem cells do is just give the immune system a slap upside the head and say, hey, wake up, get to work. But the stem cells don't produce anything new or different. And this is shocking, almost alarming. Why? Because in the medical industry, there are many things like injecting tetracycline, for example. That's an irritant. Ooh, it'll wake you right up. And hey, smelling salts. I'll try those. Woo-hoo. That'll stimulate your immune system. So what this is saying then is that stem cells aren't doing anything special. They're just stimulating the immune system. And we've got a whole armamentarium of things that do that very nicely and at a substantially less cost and less inconvenience. So here's one that I have been saying for a while, and it's maybe breakfast really isn't important. The morning meal may not help people lose weight, according to a meta-analysis published in the British Medical Journal. You think? I tell people who are overweight, every meal you don't eat is a blessing. There is no necessary meal for you. Can you look in the mirror? Can you see? You already got all the... You ate all of today's food weeks ago. In fact, probably years ago. So it's okay. Relax. There is no obligatory meal. And so here they've debunked the eat breakfast to lose weight, which even when you think about it, makes no sense. No sense. You want to lose weight? Drink water for breakfast. All right, next, screen time. Not so bad for kids' well-being after all. This is nature human behavior. Now, again, screen time, that means your kid's staring at a cell phone. See, I have one over here, yeah, it's a cell phone. Staring at a cell phone. Might not be bad for his well-being, whatever that is. But it's definitely, I tell you that, it's no good for his eyeballs. So that's a freebie to help with the cell phone industry. Thank you. So they have all these inheritance things, these genes. Okay, so now we know these genes are not that big a deal, right? Because your body can rewrite that stuff if it feels compelled to do so. All right. But now it says, could we inherit mitochondrial DNA from our fathers as well as our mothers? A paper published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in December 2018 showed evidence. The answer is yes. But as should be expected from such an extraordinary claim, other researchers challenged the scientists' interpretation of the data. All right, so here's the facts. Fact. You have an egg. This is an egg. It has protoplasm in it, cytoplasm. In that cytoplasm, there is a lot of information, actually. So this is a female egg. We have here, can you see it? That's the sperm. I'm going to drop it so you can see it. Yeah, not a lot. But there is some protoplasm in there as well. And what is now known is the information in the genes, the DNA, of the parent is only part of the information that the offspring has. And there's a lot of information in the cytoplasm and protoplasm. And because the sperm is so small and the egg is so large, then the mother's cytoplasm is predominant. Mitochondrial DNA, great. Here's one. Even if patients with severe aortic stenosis have no symptoms, early surgery to replace the aortic valve lowers their risk for death. Researchers from a randomized clinical trial reported in the New England Journal of Medicine. Well, there's a piece of suspicion right there. So, we have an article appearing in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is notorious for, what can we say, findings that might not be clinically significant. And so, it lowers the risk of death. Now, treatment in many cases lowers the risk of death, but not by a time frame that's clinically significant. So it can be statistically significant. For example, after 100 years of use, blood pressure medication will prevent one heart attack. That is statistically, that's significant. Can't argue with it. It's true. But for the individual who does not have 100 years to spend taking blood pressure medications, that finding is irrelevant. With cholesterol drugs, after 1,250 years of use, there is one life that is positively affected. That is statistically significant. That's proven. I mean, can't argue with that. It is true. But for an individual who does not have 1,250 years of time to invest, that may not be clinically significant. So we have to, we're always encouraged about lowering the risk of death in a certain time frame. We also have to take a look at the risk of death. We don't know what that is because all of us have 100% chance of dying, right? We just have to, let's be clear about this. We ain't selling immortality here. Or if someone is selling immortality, you should buy that at church, not at the hospital. I'm just saying. So, severe aortic stenosis who have no symptoms do early surgery, in other words, while they're still alive, to replace the aortic valve. It lowers the risk of death. And again, the risk of death is 100%. So you have to not let your emotional buttons get pressed when you hear reducing the risk of death. Like, no, my risk of death is 100%. I am totally in touch with that. You ain't telling me nothing that's going to reduce my risk of death. Now, maybe you're going to say you'll reduce my risk of death over the next 2 years, 10 years, or 20 years, in which case we can talk about it and see if I really want my risk of death reduced over the next 20 years by having traumatic surgery today. So maybe I want to pass. So we haven't really quantified what the risk of death here is that is reduced. And finally, here is the capstone. The capstone. So in order to understand the capstone of this ultimate study here, you've got to understand what game theory is. And let me just see if I can find a concise definition for game theory. Okay. So game theory is the study of the ways in which interacting choices produce outcomes with respect to the preferences of the individuals involved. Okay. So in other words, if you have a choice to make and you make this choice, what's the outcome that you're gonna get? And if you make that choice, what's the outcome that you're gonna get? And then which outcome is going to produce the best desired result? And so in game theory, they literally play out all these different scenarios and then calculate which set of choices is the most beneficial in terms of maximizing the desired outcome. Okay. So that's game theory. So you have to understand that in order to understand this finding. Applying game theory to cancer therapy, as researchers did in this paper, challenges the approach of blasting tumors with the maximum tolerable dose of chemotherapy. So in other words, blasting a tumor with the maximum dose of chemo may not produce the desirable outcome, which is shrinking the tumor or helping the patient live longer. As you can see, this is just music to the ears of the insurance company. Oh, that chemo is not cheap. And the fewer doses and the less amount, the better, by golly. Now, this doesn't mean that the findings of the therapy of this study are false, not at all. When you have a body of knowledge like medicine, which admits up front, half of everything here is false, half of everything here is false, don't worry about it, half is false, then you kind of open yourself up to this stuff. And while this may also be true, it can be true, number one, but two, beneficial for insurance companies, it's less money for them to spend, but beneficial for patients because a heck of a lot less suffering for sure. So this is really important. And I think also you have to you've got to apply game theory to medicine because many of the yields or percent of success is so friggin' low that you have got to apply the concept of, okay, what's the probability of this, what's the probability of that, and actually really apply those tools, because nothing in medicine is certain. Like I say, you roll up to the gas station and you say, hey, here's money, fill up the tank. You're pretty certain you're going to roll away with a tank of gas. But in medicine, like with blood pressure therapy, for example, you can do it for 100 years and you've got nothing. you haven't received any benefit. Or even worse, do it for the remaining of your lifetime, which is 50 years. Like, it would have helped you. You just didn't take it long enough. Yeah. So there's the behind the curtains war that is being waged. And this document, Medscape, is aimed towards physicians. And these are studies. These studies happen all the time. They happen all the time. But they are generally not publicized, not shared with doctors on a grand scale like this. And they're just forgotten, ignored. And so just the fact that these studies have been culled together in a group, summarized, and sent to every doctor on the planet is a major wake-up call. And you can imagine how a neurologist feels getting this information, that his whole neurological assumptions about Alzheimer's are just wrong. It's like, holy cow, how much longer can I keep collecting a paycheck for this stuff? And you can imagine how the cancer people must be feeling to realize that all of their checking for metastatic disease is nonsense, because the disease metastasized before it even became a cancer. And how the same people must be feeling when they get this missive saying, hey, fewer chemotherapy treatments, lesser strength. And again, it just makes them a little nervous. But the big deal here is if this was sent to every citizen, citizens would make their own decisions. And one of them might be to drop their health insurance. So that's why this whole discussion has to take place behind closed doors. And basically it's saying, hey, I know this stuff doesn't work, but can't we just keep getting paid for it a little longer? And the insurance companies are saying, hey, we got the dollar first, we're going to keep it. And so what's going on now is many areas in healthcare are developing products that are not covered by health insurance. They're literally covered by out-of-pocket expenses. Because everyone knows the patient is where the money is. The patient actually does have enough money to pay for everything they want. And that healthcare, as we now see it in the United States, is not a necessity. It's about as necessary as a 24 karat gold watch. Your cell phone, a lot cheaper, can tell you the time. Or you can even look at the sun. Or what the heck, don't worry about the time. And the reason people go bankrupt paying healthcare bills is not because the bills are so high, but because the value is so low. So if you're buying something today, paying money today for something that will not even benefit you in a lifetime, then of course you're going to be poor. Of course it's going to bankrupt you. And that's the nature of medical care. And what the insurance companies are doing now is they're discrediting it behind the scenes so they don't have to pay for it. But they don't want to discredit it to the patient because they want the patient to keep paying health insurance premiums. So we'll see how this little, one-step, two-step dance goes. It's fascinating. All right, that brings us to questions. We're going to check them out here. Here we are. All right, here's the next question. Are ground flaxseed as effective as the whole? I put the ground flaxseed on my daily salad and want to know if I'm getting the same benefits as soaking overnight. Thank you. The answer is no, you are not. The reason you are not is because your flaxseed are not hydrated prior to you ingesting them. So if you hydrate them, that's going to make a huge difference, and you're going to experience much greater benefit because those omega-3 fats are going to be released and easily absorbed by you. So you should at least take your ground flaxseed and stir them into a volume of water that's 4 times the volume of the flaxseed. I recommend a 1/4 cup flaxseed and 1 cup of water. So that answers the part about putting it on your daily salad. A very bad idea. The next question is about whole versus ground. Um, so once your flaxseed are ground, they begin to become rancid and they deteriorate and they become actually unhealthy. So I totally do not recommend buying ground flaxseed. If because of whatever reason you prefer to eat ground flaxseed, fine. Just go ahead and grind them yourself right there on the spot and you're done. But soaking the flaxseed overnight is much quicker because what happens is the flaxseed expands as it soaks up the water. It releases the omega-3s through the skin of the seed, and then it splits open, exposing the protein, lignins, and other beneficial things in the seed. So soaking overnight is simply easier. But if you want ground flaxseed, you prefer ground flaxseed, then just grind your flaxseed, measure out a 1/4 cup, put it in 1 cup of water, stir it up. I would let it sit for maybe 10 minutes is enough because you ground it. And then you can drink it. What foods should you avoid if you have high blood pressure? Are collards okay? So collards actually, collards and moringa, they're in the same family, seem to cause blood pressure elevations, unfortunately. So I don't recommend collards for hypertension. So if you have hypertension, the easier thing is what food should you eat? Answer, ratatouille. Tomatoes, eggplants, onions. Those are green peppers, red peppers. Those are the ones that celery. They lower the blood pressure incredibly. So eat those. All right. Enlarged prostate. How would you shrink it naturally? Okay, the thing to understand about your prostate being enlarged is it's enlarged because of the foods that you eat. Period. None. End of discussion. Like, yeah, okay. So if it is enlarged, then some of the food you've eaten has gotten stuck in your prostate gland. So one thing is, well, how do you get it out of there? And the answer is number one, have more bowel movements, because your prostate gland sits right next to your colon. So you have the colon here, which is like a highway removing waste, and your prostate just sits right there. And so if you can increase the flow of waste, that prostate is going to shrink. All right. So increase your bowel movements. My recommendation is 3 a day, but you can go as high as 4. Next, increase your water and decrease your non-water beverages. If that's not water, then hey, you're not drinking it. And then you've got to eat simple food that you prepare yourself. And the way I put it is just shop in the produce section. The best vegetables to eat are green leafy vegetables, root vegetables, and squash. And that's going to basically clean out your prostate. Get organic if you can, or even better, grow your own. Those all grow pretty easy. But that's the best way to get it to shrink. Any recommendations for room air filters or ionizers on Amazon? Not really. I've looked at so many of them. Yeah. I would say just get one. Now, the other thing is, why are you filtering the air in your room? What's going on? So what you can do, which might make more sense, is get some muslin cloth or absorbent cotton cloth and put it over your vents, so that the air coming into your room is automatically filtered through those vents, and you don't pollute your air in the first place. And people have told me that that is actually the most effective thing that they do. So once you polluted all the crap through your ducting system in your house, and then to put an air purifier in to kind of suck it out, yeah. So the room you're concerned about, look at all the ductwork, the air intake and the heating or whatever, and put a cloth over that that's going to catch the particles, and then change that periodically. What are your thoughts on Jim Humble's Miracle Medical Solution? Do you ever use it? I do not recommend it. I have personally tried it. I tried it in 2008 and 2009, and I felt it was way too toxic, and so I stopped. I don't use it. He has since adjusted the dosages and whatever, but I find turpentine to be much better. My question is in the title of this email. Okay, so we got it. What is the best way to heal nerves that were damaged by hernia mesh? The mesh has been removed, but the pain is still brutal even 2 years later. You know what? I hate to say it, but you just made a bad decision. You can put drops of turpentine there and see if that helps. I would say follow the turpentine protocol, and then augment your diet with connective tissue like pig ears or pig feet. So what you really want is you want your body to remove the damaged tissue and replace it with new damaged tissue. And I don't think the nerves were damaged. I don't think that's what happened. I think what happened is the mesh puts in a lot of poisons and toxins and holes in there. And even though the mesh was removed, the poisons and toxins are still there. Okay, that is pretty much all the time that we have today. And I'd like to invite people to go to vitalitycapsules.com and get your Vitality Capsules. We are temporarily out of stock. We are ordering more, but we also are giving you bonuses and extras for waiting and ordering today. Also, if your questions are not answered, then there are always, like I said, the appointment option, which is vitalitycapsules.com/appointment. And we have an awesome Heal Yourself at Home course, which is vitalitycapsules.com/heal-at-home. And as always, think happens, and I'll see you next week.